Good evening, everyone. Seeing quorum in the room, I would like to call our public board meeting of the 25th of March, 2025 back to order. Apologizing first for the delay in starting our public session. And also acknowledging that we are meeting this evening on the unceded and unsurrendered ancestral homelands of the Algonquin Nation. I would like to thank the Algonquin peoples for their enduring stewardship of these lands since time immemorial, and for their generosity in sharing their traditional grandfather teachings with us, which I hope will be applied in our discussion and debates tonight. In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, does any board member have an interest to declare? And seeing none, I would now like to move to the report from this evening's Committee of the Whole private session. Vice Chair Milburn.
There were no recommendations from the in-camera session this evening.
Thank you, Vice Chair Milburn. Moving on then, do we have a mover for the approval? Trustee Lyra, sorry.
I have an amendment to the agenda, but you need someone to move it first. I will have an amendment for the agenda, but you'll need someone to move the agenda first.
Do we have a mover for our approval of our public agenda? Trustee Kaplan-Mers, seconded by Trustee Jenkins, and I will recognize are there any is there any discussion on the agenda? Trustee Lara.
Thank you. I'd like to add item 14.3, a discussion item on the elementary program review.
And at what point would you like to add that?
Item 14.3.
14.3. And that would be moved as an amendment to the agenda. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Trustee Kaplan-Mers? Is it a friendly amendment to the agenda?
Sorry, Chair. I'm not sure it's friendly. I think you need to have a vote if it's a substantive item. If it's a substantive addition.
There as a discussion item, I'm not sure whether that would count as an action item. It certainly would be considered substantive.
It's not just like a change of order in the agenda. It's actually adding as an item.
It would be adding an item.
Yes, and I may be wrong on that, but I think that would require a 3/4 majority vote.
And it does require the 3/4 majority vote to add an item, and one would need to have all trustees present and consenting, and we have all 12 trustees here in attendance this evening. So discussion on that, on the amendment?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just a point of order. I didn't hear what Trustee Lyra was looking to add to the agenda.
She's looking to add as item 14.3 on our agenda, which would be after all of the matters for discussion, an update on the elementary program review. So in terms of adding that to the agenda, we need 9 votes. We need 3/4 to approve that. And Trustee Jenkins, you wish to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. Could we just get a little bit more background on the reason for it?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I know all of us have been deeply engaged in conversations with our communities. I know we've all reached out, we've heard back from people. I would like to get a sense what other trustees are hearing. I'd like to have a conversation amongst trustees about how the community is feeling about the proposal and have a brief conversation amongst ourselves about what we're thinking, because we haven't had an opportunity to do that.
Anything further, Trustee Jenkins? did you have anything further?
Yes, thank you.
Still have
And
the floor.
so you're looking for trustees' thoughts on the current assessment of the EPR. Are you looking for perhaps suggestions for recommendations or suggestions for amendments or suggestions on something?
I think that's something to be answered in wrap up. But the suggestion is to have a discussion about what trustees are thinking. And I think the question is for all of you to consider is this is a board meeting, which means our normal process is speaking once to an issue. We could go into roles of committee, but the other question is whether anyone has been prepared to do this. So Trustee Kaplan, I think Trustee Dixon had her hand up first and then you. Trustee Dixon?
Through you, Chair, I didn't hear the full conversation, but I've heard now, so no, I don't have any questions.
Trustee Kaplan-Meier?
I would support the idea of our adding this to the agenda because I think individually as trustees, we've been trying as much as possible, reaching out to community, but we can have backroom conversations as trustees, but I think for transparency, it would be helpful to have some sort of conversation now publicly just to kind of help share a sense of what we're hearing and where we're at.
Thank you for that. Any other speakers on the amendment? Trustee Lee?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think this discussion is, while it's might be helpful, I think is a little bit premature, both in terms of preparedness. So I know we're all very ingrained in the discussions around it, but specifics to what it would be discussed, like I prefer not to be speaking off the cuff on issues, especially something this big without prior warning. And additionally, the director has said publicly that the staff are working on touch-ups to proposals. And I think that it's in fairness to both ourselves, the community, and the director to be able to finish those touch-ups before we have any further public discussion on this item, because otherwise we're just going to be, we could potentially be discussing stuff that the director is going to have touched up, and we'll basically burn time discussing something that he's already well aware of and might have already cleaned up.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. Any other speakers on the proposed amendment to the agenda? In that case, I will call the question, but I will go back to Trustee Lyra for wrap up and respond please to the other question that was raised.
So I know I've been hearing a lot from my community. I know what my community is thinking right now, but I have not been hearing a great deal from all aspects of all of your communities. And so I'd love a quick conversation amongst ourselves to say, here's what Zone 2, or here's what Zone 7, or here's what Zone 10 think about the proposal that came forward, because I am very well versed. I've had a lot of conversations with people from Zone 6, but I haven't heard from other zones to the level that I would like. And so I would encourage all of my colleagues to support this. I am going to request a recorded vote on this because I think it is important, and we shall see where the chips lay.
Thank you. I will ask Manager Gatley to please do a roll call vote.
Through you, Chair, I'll do the roll call vote. Trustee Bell,
In favor.
Trustee Blackburn,
Opposed.
Trustee Dixon, Trustee Lyra,
In favor?
Trustee Forty,
Opposed.
Trustee Jennings,
Opposed?
Trustee Kaplan-Meier,
In favor.
Trustee Lee,
Opposed?
Trustee Milburn,
Opposed.
Trustee Nash,
Opposed.
Trustee Presley,
In favor.
and Trustee Scott.
Sorry, opposed.
So that fails. 8 opposed. 5 in favor.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion?
4 in favor, excuse me.
3 in favor. Is there any further discussion on the agenda?
Sorry, it was 4 in favor. 4 in favor, not 3. 4.
Sorry, just to clarify.
Bell, Lyra, myself, and Presley were in favor. That's 4.
There's 8 opposed, 4 in favor.
Let Manager Gutley work through the list one more time and we will know the vote.
Just to clarify, there are 8 opposed and 4 in favor.
So 8 opposed, 4 in favor. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? And seeing none, I will call the question on the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please. And opposed, and that motion is carried. Moving on to item 8 on the agenda, the chair's briefing. The Earl of March Secondary School is organizing an in-person information session on concussion awareness tomorrow, March 26th, sponsored by the school council. This event, open to all parents and caregivers, will provide participants with practical strategies and resources to recognize concussions, promote recovery, and help students safely return to learning and activity. Details are available on our website. Next, a reminder that the in-person transition planning fair for families, caregivers, and youth with intellectual disabilities is taking place tomorrow, March the 26th. This event will provide information about service coordination, community day programs, recreation, housing, and more. And again, details are available on our website. And finally, I would like to extend our best wishes to all those in our community who are celebrating Eid al-Fitr this weekend. That ends my briefing. Are there any questions? Seeing none, and I would like to move on to the director's briefing now. Mr. Director.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all participants who have shared their feedback on the proposed program review at the elementary level through the community meetings and the online survey. The online survey itself closes at 11:59 p.m. tonight. We've had the opportunity as staff to review the feedback on a day-to-day basis in a cumulative manner for upcoming reports to the Board of Trustees. I'd like to also share that joining us this Thursday, March 27th, please join us this Thursday, March 27th for the virtual OCDSB Speaker Series event, Navigating the Challenges of School Refusal and Avoidance. OCDSB social workers and members from the nonprofit organization PLEO will share strategies and insights to help you navigate these challenges while maintaining a healthy relationship with your child. Details are available on our website. Finally, a reminder that this Friday, March 28th, is a PD day for all OCDSB schools. There will be no school for students. The extended day program will not be operating, and early on centers will be closed. That ends my briefing. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the director? And I'm seeing none. We have no delegations this evening. And so we can move on to item 11 on our agenda, confirmation of board minutes. Do we have a mover to confirm the minutes of our board meeting held on the 25th of February and also our special board meeting held on the 26th of February 2025? Trustee Lee, seconded by Trustee Kaplan-Murth. Are there any errors or omissions in either of these sets of minutes? And I'm seeing no hands raised, so I will call the question to confirm both of those sets of minutes. All those in favor? And opposed? And the motion is carried. Is there any business arising from either of these sets of minutes? And again, I'm seeing none, so we will move on to item 13, matters for action. And I would like to call on Trustee Jenkins to present the report from our Committee of the Whole budget meeting on the 18th of February, 2025. Trustee Jenkins?
Thank you, Chair. I will move receipt of the February 18th, 2025 COW budget report.
Seconded by Trustee Nash. Thank you. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? Trustee Lyra?
Thank you. Second paragraph, fifth page, it says that support for undeserved students and equity inclusion remain top priorities for the board. Trustees requested the discretionary funds be allocated for equity and inclusion initiatives remaining in place, despite potential changes in funding for other areas across the district. Initiatives that support students in low-income communities and those affected by poverty were also requested to remain a high priority. That was not what I said. What I said was that I was willing to forego any other expenses in the name of the work that we do on poverty. And I do not feel it has been well captured with these minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Staff will review the notes and video and make an appropriate amendment.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other errors or omissions in these minutes? Or in this report, I should say? And I'm seeing none. So I will call the question on receiving the report, subject to revisiting the expression of that particular section of the report. All those in favor of receipt? And opposed? Motion is carried. Back to you, Trustee Jenkins. Are there any recommendations in the report?
There are no recommendations.
Thank you very much for that. Moving on then to item 13.2 on our agenda. I would like to call on Vice Chair Milburn to present the report from our Committee of the Whole meeting on the 4th of March, 2025. Vice Chair Milburn.
I will now move receipt of the March 4th, 2025 Committee of the Whole report.
Seconded by Trustee Nash. And again, are there any errors or omissions in this report? And I'm not seeing anybody raise a hand, so I will call the question on receipt of the report. All those in favor? And opposed? Motion is carried. Back to you, Vice Chair Milburn.
There are no recommendations in this report.
Thank you very much. Item 13.3 is the report from our Community Member Recognition Awards Selection Committee meeting of the 7th of March, 2025. And again, I will call on Vice Chair Milburn if she wouldn't mind moving presenting that report.
I move the recommendation within the report, so I'm thinking someone else should be the substitute mover.
So perhaps Trustee Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. I will move receipt of the March 7th, 2025 Community Member Recognition Awards Selection Committee report.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that? Trustee Nash will second. Are there any errors or omissions in the report? And again, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So on receipt, all those in favor and opposed, and that motion is carried. Trustee Jenkins?
There was no recommendation.
There is a recommendation, I believe.
Okay, sorry, my apologies. That the administration of the following awards created pursuant to policy P-013.gov, Community Member Recognition Awards Program, and specifically identified in PR-636.gov, be temporarily paused while the committee considers recommendations for changes to the program regarding its longer-term viability and sustainability, with the Community Award, Distinguished School Council Service Award, Volunteer of the Year Award, Community Partnership Award, Excellence in Equity Community Award, and Community Award for the Arts.
And trustee Milburn mentioned she was the mover for that, so will you be seconding it?
Yes, I will, Chair.
Thank you. Is this a consent item? And I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand to say it is not. So we will take the vote on it immediately following item 13.4. And that concludes the report. Is that correct? Thank you. And now I'm going to go back to you again because we're looking for the report from our Committee of the Whole budget meeting on the 18th of March to be presented.
Thank you, Chair. I will now move receipt of the March 18th, 2025 cow budget report.
Seconded by trustee Lyra. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? And I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor of receipt and opposed? And that motion is carried. Trustee Jenkins.
So on a motion by trustee Blackburn, which I will second, that the academic staffing plan for 2025-2026 be approved subject to adjustments related to fluctuations in projected and actual enrollment.
Thank you. And is this a consent item? And I'm seeing heads shaken, so it is not a consent item. And we will deal with it under item 13.5. In the meantime, is there anything further in your report, trustee Jenkins, or is that it?
That's it.
Thank you very much. So before we go on to the non-consent items, I will ask Manager Gatley if he could please open the vote in eScribe with regard to the motion on the Community Member Recognition Awards program. And we have our result of the vote. The motion is carried, 11 in favor and 1 opposed. And before we move on, I will just remind trustees that one award has not been paused. That is the Chair's Award, given in recognition of the substantial contribution of an OCDSB staff member or a community member to the achievement of the aims and objectives of the board over an extended period of years. If you could please submit your nominations to me as chair by Friday, the 16th of May, 2025, I would appreciate it. And that brings us now to the non-consent items. We have the motion with regard to the academic staffing approval for the coming school year. So I will look to trustee Blackburn to introduce the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I think I'd like to thank my colleagues for a robust discussion. When we discussed this the other night, I'd like to thank staff for their comprehensive answers and for all the work that they put into this report. And I look forward to passing this very quickly in a timely fashion.
Speakers to the motion. Trustee Lee.
I'd like to make a minor amendment after the number 2026 to add as outlined in report 25-013.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Trustee Nash will second that. Is that by any chance a friendly amendment? And I'm seeing no objections, so that change will be incorporated into the recommendation. Thank you, Trustee Lee. Anything further?
No, that's it.
And the next person I had on my list was, I think, Trustee Dixon and then Trustee Lyra. Oh, I thought your hand was up. So moving on then to Trustee Lyra.
Thanks. So I have a question for staff. What happens if the board fails to meet obligations we are required to under the collective agreement?
Mr. Director?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn that over to Superintendent Lehman from an employee services perspective.
Through you, Chair. As noted during the March 18th meeting is that we do have an obligation through the collective agreement in order to meet specific timelines associated with staffing. There potentially could be implications and a grievance from the union or unions associated with us not meeting the timelines. The second piece around that is that staffing is already compressed for us over the course of the spring, and it could significantly back up the timing of and our ability in terms of to successfully staff throughout the spring. So those would be the couple of issues that come to mind related to the question.
Thank you. So I voted against this at Committee of the Whole. This is not a budget that I am happy with. It is a budget that undervalues the special education portfolio. It is a budget that includes removing special education supports. And when I voted against it, it was my hope that it would fail and we would go back and revisit those provisions under the special education part, because we would have had time to do that. My understanding is that we are now up against a wall and we don't really have time to go back and rebuild this budget, because my recollection is it's the last week of March this has to be done by. Could I get a confirmation on that?
Through you, Chair. Yes, the end of March.
Yeah. So we no longer have time to have staff go back, rebuild this budget, and come back to us with more information. And there isn't a meeting in time to meet those agreements between now and the end of March. And so I did vote against this at Committee of the Whole, and I'm incredibly disappointed that that it passed, because I greatly value special education. I am going to support it now because we are required to meet obligations under the collective agreement. And as Superintendent Lehman has said, if we do not meet those timelines, we have the ability to be grieved by every employee that we end up having to either move or lay off after the timelines have been met. And so I will be supporting this, but it is with great reluctance that I do so, and I felt I was obligated to explain why my vote has changed between Committee of the Whole and now to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lyra. Are there any other speakers to this? Trustee Kaplan-Murth?
I would similarly like to reiterate that I voted against this at the Committee of Whole budget because we need to send a very clear signal to the provincial government that chronically underfunding education leaves us in situations where we can't hire the staff that we need in order to support our students. And I am very concerned about the reduction of educational assistants who we fought so hard to add. And I'm concerned about other support services such as psychologists, occupational therapists, and others who we desperately need. But as I said at the Committee of the Whole budget, that's not a criticism of the district, it's a criticism of the province. So I too will support it today, but I note for the record that it's not acceptable that we're in this situation.
Are there any other speakers to the recommendation? Trustee Bell.
Hi, and through you, Chair. I echo the comments made by my fellow trustees. I am concerned about special education and our support services going forward, as well as the entire system with any sort of reduction. Again, this is as a result of underfunding by the province, as I stated last meeting, and not the board. And I understand that we do have our obligations to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bell. Any other speakers to the recommendation? I am seeing none at this time, so I will go back to Trustee Blackburn for wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. And obviously, I would never presume to speak for anybody else at this table, but my guess would be that every single trustee in this room understands that we are woefully underfunded in special education, which is the case across the province, and that we all care very deeply for all those students who have special education needs. Again, not a topic that any trustee has a monopoly on about caring about. So I appreciate that people need to make political comments on the record, and I'm glad that it looks like we'll pass this with more votes than we did last time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Blackburn, and I will ask Manager Gatley if he could please open the vote in eScribe. And we have a result carried 10 in favor, 1 abstention. And that is motion is carried. And that then brings us on to item 13.6 on our agenda this evening. Report 25-017, renaming of the new Riverside South School. Mr. Director.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Riddell, the Superintendent of Schools, for report 25-017.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Director Buffoni. Good evening, everyone. This is an exciting announcement and certainly great to open a new school in the Riverside South community. The community will also support students, or the school will support students from Finley Creek, as well as Barrhaven. It is opening in September 2025 from 7 to 10, grades 7 to 10, and a grade will be added for 2 years subsequent till September 2027. The current enrollment for the school is 699 students, and at capacity, the school can hold 1,516 students. So in February and going into March, there was a school naming committee. There were 6 community members on the committee, 3 students, 2 staff members, an Indigenous elder, the new principal, and myself as a superintendent. Additionally, over 700 parents and community members took part, and approximately 570 students from feeder schools that will go into Riverside South voted on a school name. So in total, we had approximately 1,358 votes. The committee met 2 times and then followed up very briefly with a third. There were 35 names that were submitted. Among each of the names that were brought forward, there was also information provided about the meaning of said names. The committee narrowed it down to 7 names and then down to 3, which you have presented before you this evening. So the first name is the Riverside South Secondary School. We asked Algonquin Elder Albert Dumont to give us a meaning and significance of the word Riverside in particular, and it's there for you, and I'll read it very briefly. It's Riverside to me is a place where travelers on the great river of life can go to rest, to regenerize, and to plan next steps, taking them forward in a good way as they continue their earthly journey. Riverside is the name of a human being that stands on a place to place an offering of sacred tobacco into the waters of the river in honor of all relations to the animals, birds, fish, trees, and other life, helping us to live well. Riverside is where a fire is kindled, where the ice is first observed on the river's edge. A human being did so to request peace, safety, and health for family, friends, and the nation as cold moons of winters pass. So there's a bit more information about that, but certainly we felt the river was an appropriate symbol that was very connected to education and pathways for students, as well as the different metaphorical things it can represent. And certainly the location Riverside South, the south component of that added to that name. The second name was Algonquin Ridge Secondary School. So this one recognized that the new school is situated on the ancestral lands of the Algonquin people. The name will help to remind community of the shared responsibility to honor, respect, and care for the natural world around us, as well as the Algonquin people have for generations. The name prompts us to strengthen our connections with each other by engaging in the relationship building that honors and upholds the voices and values of the Algonquin Nation. The third and final one proposed tonight was the Grandview River Secondary School. So the new school is situated close to the Rideau River, a waterway that played an important role to the Algonquin people during the growth of the Ottawa area. Grandview represents the beauty of the Rideau River and the many scenic views that can be found along its shores. Grand can also represent the importance of setting goals and high expectation for student achievement and success. So the committee decided at that time just that it be recommended that Riverside South Secondary School be the opted name. Part of this was when the 7 names went back for voting purposes. Out of the 1,358 votes, the Riverside South School had 850 votes. So it was voted the most.
Thank you for that report. There is a recommendation at the end of the report, and I'm looking to see who would like to move it. And I see Trustee Jenkins. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Rydell, for the report. The community of Riverside South and Finley Creek is very much excited for this school, and I appreciate the inclusion in the report, the background for the meaning of Riverside, because actually I didn't know that. And it's the school is within walking distance of Rideau River and easily accessible, and you can walk along the boardwalk there. So thank you very much for including that. It's very meaningful. And thank you to the parents who showed up at the 2 separate community meetings, one in Finley Creek and Riverside South. There is a strong support and excitement for this community to start attending the school. So I would like to move the recommendation that the new secondary school in Riverside South, located in Ottawa at 720 Earl Armstrong Road, be named Riverside South Secondary School effective September 2025.
And is there a seconder for that recommendation? Trustee Blackburn, thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? And I'm seeing none. Do you have any wrap-up, Trustee Jenkins?
None required.
In that case, I will ask Manager Gatley if he could please open the vote. And the motion is carried unanimously among those present, 11 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. Moving on with our agenda then, we come into matters for discussion. First question, is there a report from OSTA? I know we do have some minutes attached to our agenda.
No other update.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. And with regard to our representative from the Ontario Public School Boards Association, Trustee Jenkins, do we have anything to report in public this evening?
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder to trustees that on Saturday, April 5th, the Eastern Regional Meeting will be held in Brockville, and all trustees are invited to attend.
And I will add to that, if you are planning to go to that Eastern Region meeting, if you could please get your travel approval form to me sooner rather than later. And if there's more than one or two people going, it may be worthwhile considering sharing vehicles. So moving on then to the board work plan. It is here. It has been updated again. If there are any questions, but it reminds us of the work we still have to do this year. And I'm seeing no questions on that. We have no new matters for information this evening, which brings us to new business. Trustee Bell?
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. I just wanted to give a shout out to my community that has been contacting me consistently over the last couple of weeks regarding the elementary program review, and to let them know that I have sent out an invite and have been working with councils to have a community outreach meeting virtually tomorrow. I am hopeful that the voices of my community have been and will continue to be integrated into this review, and I appreciate that staff has agreed to support this virtual engagement. I'm always available by my trustee Facebook social media account, by email, by phone, if anyone has any further questions or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bell. And I saw some other hands raised over here. Trustee Lyra?
Thank you. I was wondering if the director could comment on a news article that came out on Friday about this. It was in CBC about the district being in court trying to unmask somebody from the internet.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn the commentary over to General Counsel Mark.
I don't know that there's any comment to make other than what was noted in the article, which is that the district does have a case in court right now where we are seeking to determine the identity of some anonymous posters who had posted comments which we deem defamatory towards staff, and we will always try to defend and protect our staff from that type of conduct.
I suppose the root of the question is it really a good use of the district's time and resources to go after people saying mean things about us on the internet?
I'm going to refrain from adding further comment just because I don't agree with the characterization, and I think it would be inappropriate for me to continue further discussion on it in this context, in this forum, given that the matter is before the courts.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Lyra. And moving on, Trustee Dixon.
Through you, Chair. Given the continuing physical absence from board meetings over the past year, and the fact that we have a trustee that no longer resides within the municipal boundaries of the city of Ottawa. Sorry, Chair. I think this is out of order, and I think I should be able to.
Trustee Dixon, if this is relating to an individual trustee and personal information about that trustee, it should be in camera.
It's not. It's not.
The place of her residence is her personal information. It is not to be shared publicly.
But I think, Chair, I think we should actually send a letter. I'm requesting that we send a letter to the ministry to ask through general counsel if this is something that is acceptable. I think, you know, if we need to, let's have a vote. Because I think
Trustee Dixon, I will ask if staff can respond to that question before you go on.
I'm not sure which question I'm responding to. Sorry, is it the question about having a vote or is it the
The question about sending a letter.
I mean, I'm in the board's hands in that regard. I have no reason on my end at this point to send a letter to the ministry about anything. I'm quite clear in my mind on what the law is, and I have no reason to believe that the district has acted outside of the bounds of the law.
Trustee Dixon, I think that ends this particular discussion. Is there any other new business? Trustee Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it has been brought to our attention for those watching the meeting that trustees are provided with press clippings throughout the province on a daily basis, and it's common knowledge that another board is going to court regarding a trustee who is not residing in their district and performing their duties from outside the district. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That is correct. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Blackburn. And it is completely unknown whether that case will have any success, if in fact it ever ends up with a decision. Trustee Kaplan-Murth.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, at what stage would we have to put forward a motion to have additional time to instruct the staff to give us time to consult further with community in terms of the EPR? Like, can we just clarify publicly what the next steps are?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, as well known, staff has been collecting feedback through the consultation process with the community. It has been tremendously valuable. I want to note here that it is ongoing until midnight this evening, 11:59 p.m., and every piece of information that we receive will be considered. Staff is in the process of reviewing, again, well known, that feedback for trends and patterns where we, in particular, our planning department, who has been working quite literally night and day to make adjustments where that's possible for a report that staff is looking to put out at week's end. There are some other factors to not only the content of that report, but we'd like to put it out in sync with a revised school locator so that individuals would be able to, in light of any revisions to a proposal, be able to click the school locator to see where they now stand. I think that's an important element. We're looking at making sure that's in place. So we are aiming for week's end for that report. If there needs to be a delay to align it to the school locator, we think it's worth it. But right now we're working to be on track in response to Trustee Kaplan-Murth's point. That would be, for all intents and purposes, a revised proposal taking into account what we've heard. May not change every individual perspective, but a large number of them, I'm confident I can say, are being addressed in the work that we're doing. Having said that, we would want to provide some time for both the Board of Trustees as a governance body and members of the public to then have an opportunity to comment on any revised proposal for us prior to providing the board with essentially recommendations. So we're working diligently to bring a report forward that reflects what we heard in the feedback. We've always said that this wasn't a fait accompli, that we would be looking at what we heard. We're going to be doing that in the report on Friday or very shortly thereafter for additional input from our communities and for the Board of Trustees to consider at some point, of course, over the month of April in a series of recommendations. So that's where we are right now. But essentially a revised proposal coming out by week's end or early next week at the latest, but we are aiming for week's end.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify. So when we get the revised proposals, at week's end. Then we have a meeting. I think we have a committee of the whole coming up. I'm just wondering if you can clarify for me, Chair, when would we need to give notice of motion if we wanted to ask for more time to get community feedback?
At present, that has not yet been determined because we will be working on our agenda planning for the meetings through April, and we will certainly be taking that into consideration. So we will let you know as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other new business this evening? And I'm seeing none. That brings us to the end of our agenda. And I would like to thank all of you for your attendance and participation this evening. This meeting stands adjourned.